Now, here's the key thing. This is the key thing I want to highlight about Stephen Crichton's performance. It's not about the try assist, it's about this. That's 3 wins in a row for the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. 4 out of 5 wins out of their last 5 matches. And that in the W column is always positive progression. But are the Bulldogs back? And crucially, are they finals bound? What has been the key change? Do you support Stephen Crichton as number 6? Well, here's the plot twist. I think it goes deeper than that. And I'm going to tell you why in this video. First, let's start with the game against the Titans. Positive result, 30-12, but I'm going to say it should be 30-8 because Connor Tracy, dead set, stopped a try. Absolute nonsense that it was given. Absolute nonsense that we have bunker and technology and ChatGPT, and between all 3 pieces of technology, we can't seemingly see that a player dropped the flipping ball. But nonetheless, the Bulldogs, I'm going to call it 30-8. Don't listen to the scoreline that the NRL tells you. Larry tells you how it is. Really positive performance for the Bulldogs. Started the first half super strong. And I almost want to say it was a game of 2 halves, but the first half set the catalyst for the second half. Bulldogs dominated early. Lots of possession. Lots of attack down the Titans' red zone. And while they didn't get over the line as quickly as we would have liked, they were definitely threatening. Matt Burton should have scored quite early on after a delicious cutout ball from Stephen Crichton, but it wasn't to be. Lachlan Galvin running very, very busy was the Bulldogs' number 7. And I'm going to talk about number 7 and 6 in just a minute, don't you worry. But a man is only as good as the wife behind him, and a Bulldogs halves pairing is only as good as the forwards in front of them. And our forward pack absolutely decimated the Gold Coast Titans. Listen to some of these statistics. Leo Thompson, I thought that was his best game in a Bulldog shirt. 16 runs for 164 meters. He also managed 2 offloads and is introducing that second phase play, which is making him quite the threat. But he played 57 minutes, Leo Thompson, an improvement from last week. Last week, the Kiwi International played 70 minutes, and I thought it was just far too much ask for a big man. Whereas here, less minutes and greater impact overall. Well done, Leo Thompson, and credit to Cameron Ciraldo for the rotation of Leo Thompson. Max King, Mr. Consistency. 14 hit-ups, 150 games, 1 try, 152 running meters. Absolutely brilliant. No missed tackles. Max King has been the Bulldogs' most consistent forward over the last 3 years. He just turns up, former State of Origin player, has a second phase in him as well. Just Mr. Consistent. He's not a true toiler by the definition. If you think of Aiden Tolman, if you're old enough to think of Aiden Tolman or a Tony Grimaldi, that's not Max King. He actually does offer some punch. He's not as explosive as like a Payne Haas or an Adam Fanua Blake, but he does have a big engine. He makes good meters and he gets a decent speed, play the ball. Really positive performance from Max King, and so happy for him to score a try in his 150th appearance in the NRL. Well done, Max King, and great to see the press match conference with Cameron Ciraldo, with Stephen Crichton. So happy for Kingy, and honestly, that's what you want to see. Josh Curran, 10 runs, 91 meters, 2 tries. Josh Curran, I think this is the first time he's played on the left-hand edge for the Bulldogs, and he was deployed there while he was with the New Zealand Warriors. We haven't seen it. Normally with the Bulldogs in the back row, Curran has been utilised on the right-hand side with, like, ordinary performances. Nothing quite brilliant, but nothing super poor either. But on the left-hand side, you wouldn't even be blamed for forgetting that Viliami Kikau is missing. He was absolutely brilliant. I want to talk about some rugby league brilliance here from Josh Curran. That first try he scored particularly. He ran what I call the outside in ball. So he starts out, and as Stephen Crichton shapes, and Crichton got a lot of praise for this, but Curran deserves equal if not more praise. What he does is he engages the B defender. He attacks the line outward, and then at the final second, Crichton stays straight. So Crichton's engaging the A defender while Curran goes out and then in at the last second. So when Crichton's throwing the ball, Curran's changing his line while the ball is in the air. And that is what allows him to burst through the hole, fend off Kinney, score the try. Absolute rugby league execution, articulately executed. Mwah. Chef kiss. Bailey Hayward, his best game in a Bulldog shirt this year. As a number 9, he was quite good today. Lots of running out of dummy half. Love to see it. 5 runs, 48 meters, much improved, much higher than his average, which is close to around 10 meters. And crucially, he got a try assist. A nice cutout ball out of dummy half, saw the overlap, saw the space, threw a nice ball to Jethro Rinakama for the Fijian flyer to go over. Lachlan Galvin, a really positive performance. Lots of running, really high statistically. what I do want to highlight is Connor Tracy's try saver. It was a freaking try saver, and Inari Tawala's try saver. It's not about the Bulldogs' ability to score points, which obviously is a positive. Only the third time this year that the Bulldogs have scored 30. But what's impressive here is the Bulldogs in the last 3 games have conceded 12 points, 12 points, and 12 points. 3 games in a row where they've conceded only 12 points. Now, the Manly scoreline is a bit skewed because Manly missed their kicks and it was 3 tries. And like here, the Titans scored 3 tries and missed all of their kicks. So maybe a bit of good fortune falling the Bulldogs' way. But this is all really positive and, again, an improvement on the Bulldogs' average, and this is helping their for and against. The Bulldogs are conceding less points, which means their attack is feeling less pressure. Another key statistic on the Bulldogs' performance. Now, this is something that might go over people's head. Everyone's focusing on the improvement in the scoreline, but here's the true statistic. In the last 3 games, the Bulldogs have conceded 3 tries against Manly, which included 2 ruck infringements, 1 penalty against Parramatta, which included 2 ruck infringements, and 0 ruck infringements even against the Tigers. Now, in this game against the Titans, we conceded 4 penalties, but crucially only 1 6 against the reset start. And that for me is the key improvement. I'm not so much mind blown by the Bulldogs attack. I'm more given so much faith by the improvement in their defense. But also, this is an improvement on the overall refereeing in the NRL. I think you're seeing across over the league in the past 2 or 3 rounds that more defensive games are coming in. I point to the Roosters game against the Sharks last week, defensive masterclass. Panthers Titans last week, defensive masterclass. Bulldogs Manly last week. Titans Bulldogs yesterday. While the Bulldogs scored 30, it was a bit of a grind, particularly in that first half. So you're seeing that the standard of refereeing is now starting to shift, and that is benefiting the Bulldogs. A slower game benefits a Bulldog side that likes to play with a fast, high-intensity defensive line. And I think there is a balance between the Bulldogs' confidence improving, more discipline in the ruck infringements and penalties being given away, but also the standard of refereeing is now shifting and coming down from the touch football that we were seeing for the first 10 rounds of the season. I love State of Origin for this reason. The referees seemingly start to gain common sense once again. But now let's talk about Stephen Crichton, number 6, the captain, and he led by example. Now, here's the key thing. This is the key thing I want to highlight about Stephen Crichton's performance. It's not about the try assist, it's about this. Stephen Crichton's playing halfback. Hear me out. I'm going to list the statistics between Stephen Crichton and Lachlan Galvin, the Bulldogs' 2 halves, and explain why Stephen Crichton is the one who's playing halfback despite the fact he's wearing the number 6 on his back. Now, here are 2 sets of statistics. I won't tell you whose they are just yet, but it will allow you to process and think about who's playing 6 and who's playing 7. 16 runs, 170 meters, 1 line break, 0 try assists, 0 line break assists. Then the other half, 6 runs for 65 meters, 3 line break assists, 3 try assists, 2 forced dropouts. Both of them had 2 forced dropouts, to be fair. The second set of stats are Stephen Crichton's. Less running, more creativity, equal inline dropouts, and crucially, more in kicking meters. A little bit more balanced this week. Last week, Stephen Crichton, the dominant kicker. In this game, a little bit more mixed. Lachlan Galvin kicking for 300 meters, Stephen Crichton for 256, but it's pretty balanced. In saying that, really positive to see Stephen Crichton taking a controlling ownership of this team. Now, as the captain, it's pleasing to see that he commands the respect of his team. Like, that's always been obvious of Stephen Crichton and not anything that anyone would knock him for. I think there's been a bit over-the-top criticism of Stephen Crichton so far this year for a variety of reasons. One being that he's carrying an injury, 2 being that he has underperformed at times. Like, we can't skip around that. But in saying that, in this performance, Captain Clutch 101. He kicked the winning field goal last week, and he showed some creativity this week. Now, are the Bulldogs back? That's the key question. Seen people saying Stephen Crichton's proven the haters wrong, the Bulldogs are back, they're finals bound, etc., etc., etc. Look, I'm going to take this result with a grain of salt, okay? And that's not me being negative, but rather it's me being tempered. The Gold Coast Titans are in the bottom 3 in the NRL. The Gold Coast Titans will finish in the bottom 3 in the NRL. The Bulldogs can only play what's in front of them, so I give full credit to the boys for the performance that they put in. In saying that, some of the defensive efforts from the Titans were astoundingly bad. For Jethro Rinakama's first try, the Titans' backline was running sideways and toward their own try line. that is just poor defending, right? And like I said, there's 2 games in a game of football. Bailey Hayward's cut-out pass, being parked on your defensive line from the Gold Coast, poor defensive effort. Now, there is a narrative where you can say the Bulldogs suffocated the Titans, which led to the scoreline blowing out at the end. And yeah, that's very possible. But I want to see how we perform against the better sides. I want to see how we perform against the West Tigers after the bye. I want to see how we perform against the Melbourne Storm in a couple weeks' time. We've got a very winnable group of games after the bye. And again, I think it's credit to this side for now building the confidence, and winning does funny things, right? But in saying that, we have to acknowledge that there's been some poor performances this year, and we can't simply eradicate them from our mind. Now, are the Bulldogs going in the right direction? 100%. Is their attack improved? 100%. Has Cameron Ciraldo struck a gold with Stephen Crichton at 6 and Matt Burton at centre? I think we can see that Matt Burton is probably better utilised, where he can just focus on his running. Matt Burton looks free of the responsibilities, just focusing on his game, and that's really good to see. Stephen Crichton played really well against the Gold Coast Titans, showed a nice sleight of hand, showed some vision. Obviously, I'm not one who's going to be telling you that Stephen Crichton is the Samoan Wally Lewis and is going to be the Bulldogs' long-term number 6. I think next year, Stephen Crichton will revert back to the centres where he belongs, because in my opinion, he is one of, if not the best centre in the game. But it's working for now, because as I said earlier, I think Stephen Crichton is playing in a position where he can utilize his communication and his leadership, and then also show his nice sleight of hand, which is allowing the Bulldogs to score some tries. Now, I think Stephen Crichton himself will tell you he's not a 5'8", but it's working. And I have to give some credit here to Cameron Ciraldo, to Stephen Crichton, and to the coaching staff, because honestly, when I saw this performance last week, I was really in a lot of doubt. And I still have my reservations, and again, I think we'll know more in 3 games' time. But what we can't argue with is the Bulldogs have now won 3 games in a row. They're undefeated with Stephen Crichton playing in the halves. Our attack looks better. Matt Burton looks better. And these are all really positive signs. Connor Tracy has also looked much improved. And perhaps the bye a couple weeks ago allowed this team to freshen up, which is always a positive thing as well. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the game. What are your thoughts? Are you feeling optimistic about the Bulldogs making the top 8? That's the key question. I'm not going to give an answer just yet. I want to see 1 or 2 more games before I get too giddy. But there's my views. Enjoy your weekend of rugby league and get out of here.